It was exactly 1 year ago today that the lightning offensive reached its ultimate conclusion. Syria saw the fall of Bashar al-Assad, ending over 5 decades of his regime in a blitz that stunned the world. In Damascus, celebrations erupted in Umayyad Square, just as they have done today, as Syrians emerged from 13 years of brutal civil war, marking a moment of both relief and disbelief. In the chaos that followed, Assad fled to Moscow, and former jihadist Ahmed al-Sharaa, now the interim president, took the reins. His charm offensive has seen him meet with world leaders, even speaking at the United Nations, presenting a new face of Syria. However, the year since has been fraught with challenges. Latakia and Tartous, sectarian violence, skirmishes in the south, bombings in Damascus, and tensions with Kurdish forces in the northeast have all threatened stability. While Syrians begin returning to a country unrecognisable from its former self, questions remain. Can Syria rebuild? What will become of its minorities? Have we seen enough in terms of transitional justice? Is it too much to expect at this stage, so fresh into this fledgling rule of Hayat al-Sham? And with an economy still in tatters, can Syria recover from the horrors of the past? Tonight in the France 24 debate, we look at Syria 1 year on from Assad's fall. Joining me tonight here on set, we have one of our regulars, Farah Youssef, researcher, political activist and human rights defender. Thank you so much for joining us, Farah. In London, we also have Tara Kangarloo. She adds her voice. Fresh off her trip to Syria, Tara is a global affairs journalist and adjunct professor at Georgetown University. And then from Vienna, Syrian author and researcher Rim Aleph, who's also a regular. She tunes in fresh off the publication of her book. It started in Damascus. Rim is also a former associate fellow at the Middle East program at Chatham House. Welcome to the show, everyone. Let's just start off in Syria right now, because we are getting all of these images, Farah, and I spoke to you just before the show. There are celebrations on the streets of Damascus, Aleppo, Homs, but you yourself don't feel happy.
I mean, I was telling you, like last year at this very same time, I was at the République in Paris, and I've been dancing since dawn because when I heard that Syria was without Assad, I couldn't even stay within the walls of my very small apartment in Paris. I went down the street and I was celebrating. Even police officers joined us and didn't tell us to go home because we didn't have any license to be on the streets. I was genuinely happy. I was in disbelief. I was very relieved that we don't have al-Assad. Like many other Syrians, I quickly realized that we're not going to see political transition anytime soon. We're just shifting from one governor to another. So today I don't feel very festive. Last year I was celebrating online with my friends. Many Druze poured into the streets of Sweden to celebrate this achievement after years of demonstrating against al-Assad. Today, my friends are mourning their loved ones, and they're waiting for their loved ones who are kidnapped, waiting to get any information about them. It's the same in the coast. It's the same in Homs. Many people don't feel like celebrating because they don't have information about the disappeared. Last year, when we were watching prisons open up and inmates being on the streets again, we were thinking that maybe finally the families will have at least news, will at least have the relief of knowing what happened to their loved ones. Unfortunately, we don't have any progress on anything related to transitional justice, anything related to economic relief in Syria. We still have 90% of people under poverty. Millions of Syrians need assistance. How do we say? They still can't survive on their own. So today I'm not feeling very festive, even though every single day I'm happy that Bashar al-Assad is not ruling Syria.
It's trading one for the other. I want to ask now a question to Damascus. I must apologize because we don't have Tara Kangarloo. In fact, we do have Asir Madayin. She is the UNHCR deputy representative to Syria, and she joins us right now from Damascus. Asir, just if you can take me through the scenes of what you have witnessed today in the country. I have seen them personally. It is jubilation. Is that the overarching sense? We've just heard from Farah. It doesn't seem to be ubiquitous.
Good evening. No, absolutely. I mean, it's a historic moment. Absolutely, people in the street since 2 days ago celebrating. You can feel that people are hopeful despite all the challenging conditions, environment they are living. Yes, the challenges are too many, but the hope and the opportunities are there. People are determined to rebuild Syria. You can feel it, you can see it in the street, absolutely.
A determination that was all sparked from 1 year ago. If we can just cast our minds back to the fall of Bashar al-Assad, he was overthrown and that new government came in, led by Ahmed al-Sharaa, rebranded Ahmed al-Sharaa. But the realities of the civil war are still being felt and they are still apparent. Charlie James just reflects in this next report at the challenges and bright spots for today's Syria.
It's been 1 year since Ahmed al-Sharaa led a lightning offensive to topple Bashar al-Assad. And he is still vowing to rebuild Syria as the country's new president and promising accountability for those who committed crimes under the former regime.
We reaffirm our commitment to the principle of transitional justice to ensure that those who have violated the law and committed crimes against the Syrian people are brought to justice while preserving the rights of victims and upholding justice.
The anniversary was marked with celebrations throughout Syria. In Damascus, tens of thousands of people gathered, holding their Syrian flags high and celebrating jubilantly.
1 year ago, the fall of Bashar al-Assad was the most important day in the life of all Syrians, I believe.
We are all happy. There is an atmosphere truly full of emotion, full of joy.
However, the first year has not been all smooth sailing. There have been security concerns and post-conflict revenge killings. The cost of living is rising, the economy remains in crisis, and many of the more than 1 million Syrian refugees who have returned home are finding it harder than anticipated.
At the beginning, I was happy to return. But now I regret my decision because I can't find a job.
The 14-year civil war also divided Syrians across religious, sectarian and ethnic lines. And many still want accountability for those killed during the Assad regime. Al-Sharaa has called for unity and promised to uphold justice, but distrust still runs deep. Undoing decades of suffering and rebuilding Syria is likely to require years of building trust and leaning on international support.
So the problems very much are still there. Rim Alaf, we've heard from some Syrians today in Aleppo saying we started loving the country again. We didn't love the country before. We used to try to escape from it. How do you separate those Syrians from people like in the position of Farah Yusuf, where it very much is still a case of not even being able to go home?
I think most Syrians feel a combination of those feelings, a feeling of extreme happiness and euphoria that the Assad regime is gone. And I think we should pause for just a few seconds to remind viewers who are not very familiar with Syria that it's not just the war and it's not just a revolution, it's 54 years of an Assadization of the country. And most of the people you see today with a very young population have known nothing else. The second thing I'd like to mention is that if you look at all the other conflicts that we have seen in the world, it is very rare to come out of something like this and to immediately find the justice, the balance, and the stability that we need. So Syrians, I think, are very cognizant of all these things. And they're at the same time elated that Assad fell and that they have finally a chance, an opportunity to become a normal country and to become a normal people. And at the same time, they fear this euphoria leading to the idolization of a new leader. This time it is not forced, but it is possible. They fear the background of these new rulers. This is for sure something that concerns everybody. And they fear also the capacity of Ahmed Sharaa to be able and willing to live up to the promises that he made. The elections, the transitional justice, of which we have seen nothing so far, and definitely the reining in of the extreme elements in the security forces who have been responsible for killings and massacres. So I think it's all of these put together that give us pause for thinking. But in the long run, I believe that we do have at least an opportunity that we never had with Assad.
Reem, you touched on that sectarian violence that sprung up earlier on in the year. It was in March that we saw the coastline decimated, more than 1,400 members of the Alawite community, Assad's very own, gunned down by forces under Hayat al-Sham's command. And then in July, hundreds more were killed as a Druze militia backed by Israel squared off against a Sunni Bedouin. Hostile skirmishes over farmland threatened to spill over once more into widespread violence that culminated in an Israeli attack on Damascus. And just before the United States stepped in, and now a bomb blast also followed in the Greek Orthodox Church of St. Elias in Damascus. That was in June. 25 people killed. Minority groups responding, saying that their lives have changed for the worst. We can now bring in Tara Kangarlu. She can add her voice from a recent trip to Syria. Tara, if you can just tell us those fears of sectarian violence, if you've been speaking to the Syrians themselves, minority groups, they're very much still there.
Yes, absolutely. I wanted just to echo, though, first the profound jubilant and joy that the Syrian people are facing, hundreds of thousands of them. And I think the focus should be on this immense potential that we are seeing in Syria. And of course, the sectarian violence and the sectarian divide is there. And that's undoubtedly something of great concern. The Alawites, of course, as you mentioned, but also in the northeast, in Syria, the Kurds, and of course, the Druze. So that, I think, is one of the biggest challenges that al-Sharaa is facing right now. And also worth mentioning that we have sleeper cells, ISIS sleeper cells, that at any moment might come out and, quite frankly, I believe pose as a grave threat. We have over 9,000 former militants, ISIS militants in prison. We have the SDF in Northeast that have not yet decided what they want to do with the government of al-Sharaa in Damascus, and that itself is a big threat. And of course, the influence of Israel by way of the Druze is something that we must watch very closely, because in President al-Sharaa's last visit in Washington, what was very much anticipated was his essentially decision, I should say, on whether or not Syria will join the Abrahamic Accord or not. And he didn't say that they will. So I think the relation between Syria and Israel is one of great concern. I don't think al-Sharaa has made his mind, because I think he has so much to risk at home. There's a lot of threats against him, and he's very well aware of that. But again, he really needs the support of the West, especially the United States. And we know that Donald Trump is very much adamant in essentially bringing Syria into, the allied groups and friends of Israel in a very volatile time and a volatile region.
Tara, thanks so much. I'll go to Farah again, because you came on our show soon after the sectarian clashes as well, talking about al-Sharaa's attempts at pivoting and how this just doesn't add up. In terms of the sectarian violence, we've got so many different elements within Syrian society. Is there any room to laud Hayat al-Sham for even staying in power during this turbulent year? Or they should absolutely be held to account, and there is no room for any kind of praise whatsoever.
They should absolutely be held accountable for everything they've done before going to Damascus and for this past year. And even though I'm very happy that we no longer have al-Assad in Syria, this doesn't mean I need to romanticize the situation in Syria. No one thought it was going to be easy, and they should have known that it was not going to be easy. Many Syrian experts offered to help, to be part of governing the transitional phase in Syria, they refused. Domestically, Syria is being controlled by a few figures from HCS, and before I came here, I counted how many positions he has. He has 13 major positions. Ahmed al-Sharaa, he appointed himself in 13 major positions controlling security, economy, legal affairs, international affairs, and we also have the General Secretariat for Political Affairs that is weirdly enough part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that is controlling the social and political life in Syria and repurposing political opinion and Ba'ath assets. If you look at these celebrations in Syria today, even the formal ones, even the government related celebrations, I've heard so many sectarian chants calling to kill minorities, calling to kill Alawites, calling to kill Druze, calling to attack SDF. And I don't think this is very wise. And this form of celebration does not represent me. What represents me, what we did 1 year ago, where we were singing, lift your head up, you're Syrian. But if we're going to go on the streets to chant and call to kill other Syrians, I don't think this is a euphoria that I should respect, or that I should romanticize, or I should see as an opportunity. There is a huge sectarian fragmentation in Syria, and the authority is working on making it even worse. This is intentional. This is not just something that they're dealing with, and we shouldn't connect everything to Assad and only Assad. They should be held accountable and responsible for their actions.
I just want to point to this map now coming up, which just outlines the sectarian splits within Syria. A Sunni majority country, but it's got its Christians, it's got its Druze, it's got its Alawites, part of the Shiite mix, and it's got its Kurds, of course, in the northeast. Reem, in terms of what next in order to galvanize Syria, if you were sitting in a room with Tahrir al-Sham and Ahmed al-Sharaa, what piece of advice would you give to them?
Oh, where do I start? I think we start with one idea, is that Syrians, for the most part, do not wake up every morning and think, depending on what is their sect or their ethnicity, thinking of how they're going to fight and kill the others. I think we shouldn't also overblow the sectarian issue as a problem and as a conflict. That there are sects and different ethnicities in Syria, this has been the case for, forever. I think that what is being exacerbated, they're being exacerbated by the fact that, we have had no transitional justice whatsoever, whether with the current perpetrators of crimes or with those that have committed crimes for, the last 54 years. So it is clear that Sharaa, with the support, I must add, of the regional powers and of the EU and of the US, have decided to tread very carefully on relations with the warlords and businessmen of the Assad era. I think there are reasons for this. He is trying not to rock the boat. I would like to add to the sectarian issue that there is a lot of incitement coming mostly from Iranian and pro-Iranian groups and accounts. And unfortunately, when people are dealing in a post-conflict situation with all the economic hardship that we have all just mentioned, it is very easy to push and trigger people to feel the sectarian thing. I personally have not heard today any of the sectarian chants that Farah just mentioned. I am sure that many people, when egged on, they do say things like that, but really, I think that the biggest problems in Syria are far from being the sectarian problems. I think they're exacerbating those sectarian issues, but these are not the make it or break it issue in Syria. I will add lastly that one of the things that give me confidence is that I believe that on the regional level, with the support of the Western democracies, there is an agreement, a consensus for the first time in decades about how to support Syria, about Syria not being anymore at least a cause of trouble, if not conflict, for the neighbors. So the role of Saudi Arabia and the role of Turkey, because of their own interests as well, I think is very important and will be a factor in tempering any tendencies that go too far between, Sharaa and his people and also security forces. I think we should bear this in mind.
Reem, you've touched on a whole host of points, but starting off with that transitional justice, you have all mentioned a severe lack of it in these past 365 days. There have been establishments of transitional justice bodies like the Commission for Transitional Justice, the Commission for Missing. No domestic criminal trials, though, have occurred yet, though, for the regime crimes. We've had websites like Find Syria. We'll just see it right now. They've also popped up to help track information about missing persons in Syria, particularly those forcibly displaced. You've also had the International Court of Justice, rather, various national courts. They've all continued to prosecute perpetrators, but nothing substantial. I'm just going to go right now to Assad in terms of the progress that has been made to hold people to account. You recently met with the Minister of Justice, Mazar al-Awis. What progress is being made? Is there something tangible that you could take with you?
Yeah, I mean, just one thing, and Rima somehow touched on it. I don't think that we are just dealing with a change of government or a change of regime. We have to also acknowledge that we are dealing with a situation of post-conflict of 14 years of war, and that has to be taken into account. So when we are on the ground dealing with the government and the institutions, we do see how deep the damage, the destruction is, and how difficult is the work of the government to institutionalize transitional justice, any good governance. This is not going to be easy. This is what I want to say. I think I think that there have been progress, certainly, definitely. I can see it from the first 3 months, 4 months we have when we started meeting with the ministries, with the institutions, and now I think now they are understanding exactly the tools, the instruments that they need to follow. We are dealing also with people that didn't actually deal with these issues before. You have young, good caliber in the ministries to deal with these issues. However, many or most of them are working on voluntarily basis, because even some of the government, they don't have salaries to pay these people. So we have to take this into consideration. I think, for example, the transitional justice law has been drafted. There has been consultation to certain extent. Many of the academic have given comments to this law. I'm not saying this is a perfect scenario, but this is, in my view, a step forward. What is needed, despite all the challenges, and I do see that this is not or far from the proper way to institutionalize the good governance or the good systems, but I think we need to be aware that stability of Syria is the way forward, and the international support to Syria for us as a humanitarian is extremely important, that we ensure that the support is there. A return of more than 3 million of IDPs and refugees, they really need the infrastructure, and just judging whether the mechanism is in place or not, I don't think this is useful. I think what if we want to really rebuild Syria and support Syria, we need to be positive, really understanding the challenges, realizing and recognizing that there is no funding or enough funding coming into Syria. for the sanctions, despite that yes, there has been lifting of sanctions theoretically. In practice, still there is no application of the lifting of sanctions. So this is, I think, all has to be put into consideration.
Asira, I'm going to ask Tara on that because she deals with a lot of refugees in her work and people who have been displaced. 3 million is an enormous amount, Tara. The officials expecting already 1.5 million Syrians have returned. You've spoken to them, and we have to take what Asira said into account, that it is a very difficult process. Nonetheless, with everything that has gone on and in the amount of time that we've had, has enough been done to address and redress what has happened to these people, these desperate people who have had to flee their country, victims of rape, victims of displacement and missing people?
Of course, and needless to say, the amount of trauma, and I think we tend to forget the invisible wounds of war and displacement, and this is something that's affecting hundreds of thousands of children and also adults equally. There are over 7 million Syrian refugees. And I think it's important to note that for the longest time, they were abandoned by the United States and European allies. And, I've been covering the conflict in Syria since 2012. And I remember the days when we would see images, horrific images on our screens. And then the next day, the news would be forgotten. And these are people who are now coming back to their home country, and they're really reclaiming their hopes and dreams. My organization that you mentioned, Art of Hope, I started the organization in 2016, really inspired by the many Syrians that I met in Lebanon, where we strictly focus on mental health and trauma relief for this population. And we actually just opened our first center in Zabadani in Syria, a city that was under siege by Assad forces and Hezbollah. And it is vital to bring the infrastructure and support and really give power back to the hands of people who want to be in their country, they want to be in their cities and hometowns, and really rebuild what for the longest time they thought they've lost. And we need to take into account that these are educated people, people who were uprooted not by choice, but really truly by force. And every single person that I met in Syria, again, despite their support for al-Sharaa, they want that change, and they're hopeful that if the power is given to the people, they can certainly do that. And I actually wrote a recent piece with a colleague of mine, Marissa Khorma, in the Atlantic Council, and we very much argue this point. As your other guests mentioned, there are millions of dollars pouring into Syria right now. Syria is slowly opening up to financial engagements with the United States, Europe, and also regional countries like Saudi and Qatar that have invested billions, also UAE as well. But the biggest asset that Syria has is the people of Syria. These are people who have paid the highest price, especially those who've stayed in the country during 15 years of brutal war, starvation, siege, really the unimaginable, that again, the world looked away from for the longest time. And if we want to see a Syria that is thriving in the years to come and will be an active, vibrant regional player, we need to take into account that the Syrian people and civil society and grassroots and local NGOs need to be part of this rehabilitation process, part of this development, and part of the reconstruction that so many foreign actors are very excited about. Without them, we are not going to see a Syria for the Syrian people.
Farah Youssef, you see Mohammed al-Sharaa there, Ahmed al-Sharaa, formerly Mohammed al-Jolani in picture, and you hear all of these stories about redress, bringing in civil society. You're completely unconvinced, though, that it will happen under his watch.
And just let me say that I've seen this state of constant gaslighting of Syrian people before. It's 3 years ago when there was like this whole normalization process with Bashar al-Assad. UN officials, European decision makers, even the envoy for Syria was telling us that we need to be positive, that we need to accept this reality, that stability is key in Syria. And now we're having like the same state, I insist on the term, the state of gaslighting, that there is progress, that we need to accept it, we need to be part of it. I don't think that this is going to be in our favor. If we want to talk about the civil society in Syria, we have shrinking spaces for civil society. If you want to have a license or you want to register your association, your organization in Syria, you need to have modifications. You can't say, for example, democracy, you can't say feminism. All these terms are now completely banned if you want to register. And I just want to say, because we were talking about wounds and the needs of Syrian people, on the day of International Day of People with Disabilities, the authority decided to shut down an association for autism in Latakia, one of the very rare associations. Like in Syria, I think we have only 10 in Syria, not in Latakia, and they decided to shut it down, to turn it into a place to make leaders for the General Secretariat for Political Affairs. So this is how they see us. On the very same day that we are remembering or celebrating Assad's, I don't know how to say it, he definitely didn't fall. He's living his best days, playing video games, enjoying impunity in Moscow. So on the day that we are celebrating these emotions and feeling relieved that we don't longer have this brutal dictator, al-Assad, al-Sharaa, and this mix-up has been happening over the past year because there are many similarities. Al-Sharaa is ordering us to obey him. And this is insensitive, to say the least. This is very triggering, very insensitive, and very key to see how he sees the country, how he sees this transition. We are not this is not a democratic transition. This authority doesn't even use this term. And they are controlling the civil society. Even the donors conference that took place in Damascus, we used to go to this conference in Brussels. This year, we were very happy that it was going to be held in Syria. Unfortunately, some of the very important human rights defenders and researchers and people who were part of this fall of Bashar al-Assad were banned from speaking, like Mohammed Abdullah, for example, and many others, and even Sweden boycotted this event, and it was entirely orchestrated by the authority. So I really don't think positivity is something that we should be enforcing on other people. I mean, people who want to be positive, who want to pick and choose and see that there has been progress, they can do that. But in my opinion, I think it's very toxic, it's very dangerous to just enforce this view on other people. We're talking about the return of refugees. I myself am a refugee. And on the 9th of December, I sent an email to the prefecture just asking them for permission to visit Syria. They refused it. I sent another one and another one and another one. Do you know when I stopped sending these emails? I stopped sending these emails when they detained a friend of mine. She's an Alawite journalist. And they imprisoned her for no reason.
Under the new authorities?
Under the new authorities. They imprisoned her for no reason, and they asked her about me. And they told her that once I set foot in Syria, they will know how to deal with me. So, and I'm an Arabic Sunnite woman. So I think we should be a bit more sensitive when we ask people to be positive. And I have many, many friends who have faced the same situation. Ahmed, for example, the founder of Syria's Prisons Museum. Maybe you've heard of his story. He was imprisoned because he was working on this very important case. And they're doing this systematically. This is not just something they're doing because they lack experience. And even the lack of experience is not at all an excuse. If you don't have the experience, you do not hog all authorities. You do not act like you're a child in a candy store and you decide you want to work on economy. Even the committee for curriculum development is led by Ahmed al-Sharaa. He has no qualifications for all the things that he's insisting on doing. So I think the situation in Syria is far, far away from being positive. I think we don't have any progress, and I don't think we can see any progress under this authority.
Reem, do you share that quite a pessimistic view, I mean a severely pessimistic view, or do you think that there is a way that we actually have to say it was too early for democracy straight away out of 54 years of Assad rule, and this is something that we're just going to have to accept as a necessary evil for now until democracy can prevail. What path forward do you see?
I would like that we do not miss the forest for the trees to begin with. So as a researcher, an analyst, and somebody who's a strategist and who looks long term at everything that's happened, I personally did not expect that we would see much change within that first year. Ahmed al-Sharaa does not mention the word democracy, nor do any of the people in his government. And yet I, a secular Democrat, somebody who strongly believes in the one person, one vote issue, do not believe that this would have much effect on the progress in Syria at this point in time. The magnitude of what Syrians have endured and the fact that Syria is basically a country on its knees, financially, demographically, politically, this is generations of Syrians who have never learned what it is to have free speech, what it is to live with one another, and where one's personal rights stop in order not to infringe on other people's rights. So I am not 100% positive, but I am not so pessimistic either, precisely because I believe that there's a balance of powers between the region and between the different forces in Syria. I do believe that Syrian civil society is having a say. I do believe and have seen, like everybody I believe on this panel, that this new authority is quite receptive to the street, to the Syrian street. And in a way that shows that they themselves are not really sure of what they're doing. And indeed, they do not have any experience nor any background. Nobody does.
It seems like there's just no blueprint, no manual to really get through this. But nonetheless, Syria is still having to deal with its economic crisis. We've seen the need for a rebuild. In fact, if we can just turn to this World Bank article, it says that in order to cover the costs of war, Syria needs some kind of a $216 billion worth of financial injection. And you just see the costs split there. It could be up to $345 billion. And if you bear in mind that just before the war in 2011, it was sitting at about $60 billion worth of GDP. That was the size of Syria's economy. It's now shrunk by nearly 80%. So to get that kind of money is absolutely enormous and absolutely desperate. Asir Madien.
Absolutely. I think I have to agree with Rima again. I think we are dealing with almost a destroyed state. That would require a lot of efforts and the support of everyone. I do think that there are opportunities, and I personally, as a humanitarian, as an Arab woman as well, I do call everyone to really pick on the opportunity. Syria is an important player in the region, and the Syrians deserve that we pay every effort to ensure that they don't go through any insecurity again. The international community has to honor their commitment financially. If you see the destitute situation of Syrians, yes, there is a lot to be done on all fronts, and I do think that we have to give the opportunity for the interim government because it's too soon to make a judgment, and we have to learn from other experiences as well in the world. Any change never been immediate. It will take time to rebuild a state once again.
So more optimism coming from Asir there. Tara, we want to try and do a bit of redress and reform here on set. If you could offer words of hope to the likes of Farah, who I'm joined by, what would you say?
I will go back to the people that I met in Syria, and it is premature to think about hope in its entirety when we are talking about 15 years of war, 500,000 people killed, 13 million people displaced and forced to flee their home countries, and uprooted from the fundamental rights that they had to living. and the amount of loss cannot be measured. And I've seen that firsthand in Douma, Ghouta, Madaya, Zabadani, and elsewhere that I went to Syria. But what I want to leave the panel with, and perhaps the audiences worldwide, is that every Syrian person that I met in Syria wants a different future. They're aware of what they want, and they're more so aware of how they can contribute to their society. And never have I met in that entire region, or even in my own country, home birth country of Iran, people so adamant to bring forth that change, people so determined to write their own future. And I think there's tremendous value in that. And if the international community taps into that, and those in positions of power in Syria, again, not all may do that, but those who have some position of authority and power do that, I think we are going to see that hope that so many millions of Syrians want. And if I may share a quote from one of our teachers in Zabadani, Ala, he was fired from the public sector under Assad because he did not join the army. His brother was killed by the Assad army. The other brother was imprisoned. And he told me, he said, my parents stayed in Syria under siege just so that they might potentially see the day when and where my brother is released. After the fall of Assad, he was not released. He too was killed. And Allah said, you know, today we have freedom and we have joy, but we don't know what to do with it. We haven't experienced this level of joy and this freedom for me to even talk to you in a very long time. And we need to learn how to channel our joy, how to channel our access to this freedom. Again, this freedom of me talking to you, and he was talking about me. But what we do know is that we want to build our own country, and we don't want anyone else to play their game in our land. And I think that's an important lesson, not just for Syrians, but others in the region. They want to have control over their future. And there's an enormous amount of talent and asset, human asset in Syria right now that's ready to get back at work and rebuild a, quite frankly, failed state.
Farah, a quick word on that, a very quick one. Syria, the most resilient people that can emerge from this.
I would just like to take this opportunity at the end of our discussion to just salute Syrian women who have fought for years for their political rights. And today countless women are facing bare life, as Agamben says. Their human existence is reduced to its minimal biological form, unfortunately stripped of political representation, legal protection, or social recognition. I would like to salute these women. I would like to say to every woman in Syria, you are not alone. And this situation is not going to last. If Assad didn't last, these people are not going to last.
On that parting note, thank you so much, Farah Yusuf, for joining me on set. A big thank you as well to Azir Madayan, who came to us from Damascus, in London, Tara Kangalu, and of course from Austria, Vienna, Rim Alaf. That was the debate, the France 24 debate on Syria, 1 year on from the fall of Assad. Remember, you can follow us on France24.com English and watch our streams. That's all for now on Worldview. We'll be back for more here on France 24.
Thank you.